Today our work with decimals will continue with rounding. Our targets today are that we can round decimals to the nearest whole number and round decimals to the nearest tenth. So you'll show your evidence of learning today by being given some numbers and some decimal numbers and rounding them to the nearest whole number or tenth. As a review, this is not a decimal number, this is a whole number. We have rounded numbers, whole numbers earlier this year. So if the directions are to round 27 to the nearest 10, there were a couple of ways that we talked about this. One, the first way is to think about what 27 is between. Like on a number line, what's 27 between? If I'm rounding to the nearest 10, I'm looking at the tens places. So 27 is between 20 and 30. And then I would ask myself, is 27 closer to 20 or to 30? Like, where would I plot that on a number line? And since I would put 27 here, it's closer to 30, so I would round up to 30. Another way to think about it is we would focus on the place. If I'm rounding to the nearest 10, I find the tens place. Right now there's a 2 in the tens place, 20. And then I look one place to the right. Is that 5 or higher? And if so, I would round up to the next tens place. Or is it 4 or lower, and I would stay down at the original tens place? In this case, it's 5 or higher, so I would round up to 30. How about this? If I've got 413 and I still want to round to the tens place, that means I'm going to focus on that tens place. Even though this number goes to the hundreds, I'm going to focus on the tens place. So same thing, I would ask myself, what two numbers is 413 between? It's between 410 and 420 on a number line, if I'm looking at the tens. So 410, 420, and where would 413 fall? If 415 would be halfway, 413 would be here, closer to 410. Another way I could look at it is to, if I'm rounding to the nearest tens, find the tens place and look one place to the right. Is this 5 or higher, 4 or lower? In this case, it's 4 or lower, so I would stay down at the original tens place, so I would round it to 410. The same will be true with decimals. So I know there's a lot of text on this page. You can pause the video and read through it all, but it's showing you that if I would follow these same steps, even with decimal numbers, so the directions are right here. Round 24 and 5/10 inches to the nearest inch. I'm rounding to the nearest whole number. Whole number means ones place, so a digit without the decimal. So I'm going to focus on the whole number place, ones. 24.5 is between 24 and 25 on a number line. Then I look one place to the right to see where that falls on the number line, and it's 24 and 5/10, which is halfway. As soon as I reach that halfway point, I know I round up to the nearest whole number, which is 25. If it were 4 or lower, I would stay down at the original whole number of 24. Since it's 24.5, I will round up. So 24 and 5/10 rounded to the nearest whole number is 25. Same with this. Jasmine's mass is 35 and 2/10 kilograms, and I want to round to the nearest kilogram or round to the nearest whole number. So that means a number without a decimal point. So I want to go to the nearest ones place. 35.2 is going to be between 35 and 36 on a number line. What's it closer to? And I can see they've shown me that 35.2 is closer to the whole number of 35. And therefore, I would stay down at the original whole number of 35. Since the tenths digit is less than 5, round down. So 35.2 rounded to the nearest whole number is 35. Now, this one, round 26 and 8 tenths to the nearest whole number. I can look at the number line, so you can pause and really look at the number line, but we can also just use our kind of our shortcut strategy of think, okay, if I need to round to the nearest whole number, find that place and go one place to the right. Is it 5 or higher or 4 or lower? In this case, it's 5 or higher, so I'm going to round up to 27. So 26 and 8 tenths rounded to the nearest whole number is 27. Now this one says round 14 and 68 hundredths to the nearest whole number. There's 2 digits after the decimal. It goes up to the hundredths place, but I'm going to follow the same strategy. I'm just going to find the whole number and look one place to the right. So really, I can ignore anything beyond that one place to the right. So really, I'm looking at 14 and 6 tenths. There's the whole number. Here's one place to the right. Is it 5 or higher, 4 or lower? Since it's 5 or higher, I would round up to 15. If you want to pause the video and really read through this number line, you can do that as well. So let's practice a little bit. Get ready to pause, think and write, and then come back and check. Round 39 and 4 tenths to the nearest whole number. Did you get 39? If so, you're correct. The whole number means ones place. Look one place to the right. It's 4 or lower, so I'm going to stay down at the original whole number. I can also ask myself, what is it between on a number line? It's between 39 and 40. Is it going to be closer to 39 or closer to 40? How about 3 and 75 hundredths to the nearest whole number? Now remember, I'm going to the nearest whole number. Find the ones place and look one place to the right. What would you round to? The nearest whole number I would round this number to is 4. How about 1 and 84 hundredths to the nearest whole number? Pause and think, come back and check. I would round 1 and 84 hundredths to 2. Now we're going to focus on the second target, which is rounding to the nearest tenth. And really, I follow the exact same steps. If I need to round 83 hundredths of a meter to the nearest tenth, I am now going to focus on that place. Here's the tenths place. So I'm going to look one place to the right of that. And I can go either way. Again, whatever way works for you as far as how you think. You can think about what 2 numbers 83 hundredths is between on a number line. It's between 8 tenths and 9 tenths. What's it closer to? Or you can think strictly about place and think, if this is the place I'm rounding to, I'm going to look one place to the right. Is it 5 or higher and I'd round up? Or is it 4 or lower and I would stay down at the original value? In this case, it's 4 or lower, so I'm going to round to 8 tenths. Since it is less than 5, round down. Therefore, 83 hundredths of a meter rounded to the nearest tenth is 8 tenths of a meter. So 1 and 75 hundredths to the nearest tenth. Use the strategy that works for you. Think about a number line, or think about place and look one place to the right. 1 and 75 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth would be 1 and 8/10. As soon as I get 5 or higher, I round up. What would 24 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth be? Pause and think and write and come back and check. Here's the tenths place. I'm looking one place to the right. So I would round 24 hundredths to 0 and 2/10. How about 5 and 17 hundredths to the nearest tenth? What would you round to? Did you get 5 and 2/10? That's because the 1 is in the tenths place. I'm looking one place to the right. Is it 5 or higher, 4 or lower? I can also ask myself, what two numbers is this between on the number line? It's between 5 and 1/10 and 5 and 2/10. Halfway between would be 5 and 15/10. 17/10 would put me on this side, which means I would round to 5 and 2/10. So how about this? 3 and 62 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth. Did you get 3 and 6/10? Final practice. Here's a little chart, and this is what your evidence of learning is going to look like today. It's a similar chart. The directions say round each decimal to the nearest whole number and the nearest tenth. So notice that there is a column for a whole number and there's column for tenth, and you're going to round to the nearest each of those. So take this number and round to the nearest whole number and to the nearest tenth. So first, rounding to the nearest whole number, that would be the ones place. Look one place to the right. Since that's a 4, I'm going to say this is closer to 3 on a number line than to 4. So I would round that to 3 for a whole number. But rounding to the nearest tenth, that means I'm going to look at the tenths place and then one place to the right. Now that is 5 or higher. So rounded to the nearest tenth, I would say is 3 and 5/10. Do the same with 4 and 85 hundredths. Round to the nearest whole number and the nearest tenth, and then come back and check. Rounded to the nearest whole number would be 5. 4 and 8/10 is closer to 5 than it is to 4. And then rounded to the nearest tenth, the 8 is in the tenths place, so I'm going to look one place to the right, and it's 5 or higher. So rounded to the nearest tenth, I would say is 4 and 8/10. Your practice today will, your choices are, a lot of you mentioned you are enjoying the Brain Pop videos. You like the way Tim and Moby show you and show you their thinking. So you can click on that link and go listen to Tim and Moby and take their quiz. Or if you'd like lots of practice problems with some more explanation, there's an IXL recommendation for you so you can practice there. And then when you're done, go back to Seesaw. And like I said, there'll be a little table for you to show your learning of rounding decimals, both rounding to the nearest whole number and to the nearest tenth. We really reviewed the two different ways most of you think about that. You can visualize a number line, or you can really think about place. Find the place you're rounding to and look one place to the right.